Hey there, this is Tim. I'm one of the partners of Paragon Partners, and in this video I want to go over 24 items you can actually make money on selling broken on eBay. Now, I've been selling on eBay for about 3 years now. I typically sell between 300 to 500 items per month, so it's a medium-sized store, and I've been kind of surprised when I have broken items I can still make money on them on eBay. First one. Broken iPhones and Samsungs. You might predict this one. I was looking at an article, and the hardware cost of an iPhone is still about $300. It's only because you sign up for a 2-year contract that they can subsidize it to you. But there's still a lot of valuable parts inside of an iPhone and inside of a Samsung Galaxy as well. And when I go ahead and I sell these, I can get usually say between say 30 for an old iPhone 4 and around 50 for a good iPhone 6 or iPhone 7 now. Second, iPads. This is another one that I've done good selling broken on. I can usually get say between $40 to $50 per iPad broken. Next one, iPods. I've been surprised. You would think that iPods would be old technology by now, especially since everyone has a smartphone. And remember, these came out, 2005? So they're about 15-year-old technology now. But I can still get, even for a plain Jane, just like 4 gig memory, I can still get $10 for them. And on the good ones that have a lot of memory and are newer, I can get, say, between 20 to 25 each for them. I'm sure you see a trend here. Anything Apple does well. Next one, reel-to-reel players. This is another one I've done very good on. Of course, they're not making any new reel-to-reel players, or the ones they are making brand new. They're very expensive, several $100s. And so when you have a broken one, people have existing technology. They're eager to get a hold of it to cannibalize it for their other existing players. So on reel-to-reel, I've done well on that. It's not only broken. Sometimes, of course, they work, they power up, but they don't play. You don't have any sound coming out of them. And those kinds of things tend to be easier to correct. So people that will still go ahead and get a chance and get them broken or not playing. Next one, vacuum tube radios. This is another one I've done pretty good on. Of course, this is another one that they're not making anymore. What I like to do, is power it up and see which tubes are running and make note of it. And I've done pretty good on this one. I can still get between, say, $10 to $20 per radio. Especially, it depends on the tubes. If I have some really big tubes in there, the tubes alone can be worth $20 to $30. Next one, high-end turntables. There's another one that's no surprise. Now, I'm talking turntables that sell between, say, $500 to $1,000 new. If they're broken, I can still get usually 10 to 20% of the value out of the turntable, between $50 to $100. And of course, there are other buyers out there who can go ahead, buy them, and have the resources and the knowledge to fix them and sell them for more value. Next one, incomplete board games. This happens more in the vintage games. This happens to me a lot of times. I'll be at a garage sale at a swap meet, and I'll go ahead, I'll get a board game, I'll look it up afterwards, and I find that some of the parts are missing. And I can still go ahead and sell it used, incomplete, and I've done all right. Two of the keys are, first of all, I look up all of the parts on another website, and I'll make a listing of what's missing. And this works better on games 1970 and older. And I've done it very well, especially on some of the older Monopoly games from the 40s and 50s, which are still incomplete. And I can still get between $10 to $20 per incomplete board game. Next one, HP Scientific calculators. Man, people love these. I think every engineering student back in the 80s going to college had one of these, and they still want them. If these are functioning, I can usually pull $50 to $100 no problem. It's difficult to find them. I will say that the financial calculators are not, or they're more common, so they're not as valuable. People want the engineering calculators, but I can still get $25 to $50 on these. Next one, jewelry. This is another obvious one. People are more interested in this for the melt value than the jewelry content. I was at the garage sale and someone was selling a broken anklet. What they didn't realize it was silver sterling, and I picked it up for a couple bucks. I got home and I weighed it, and it had about $60 worth of sterling silver in it, which I thought was fantastic. Next one, 80s computers. Man, people love these. I've sold Apples, TIs. I've sold Commodore 64s and Amigas. The people will definitely go for these. I was at a swap meet. This was last year. And I found 2 old Apple E's. One of them was working. It had the original monitor and 2 disk drives, pretty much like the setup here. And I was able to get over $250 for it. Now, I picked up a second Apple IIe. It had the monitor and 1 disk drive, and it would not power on, so I couldn't test it. And I mentioned it, and I still popped $80 for that. Next one, 80 video games. You'd expect this from the 80s computers. What I think of this is a bunch of old guys. They want to relive all the glory days of their youth and when they were kids. So they're still looking for these video games. And they will repair them. So, of course, it's easy to think of Atari 2600. That's a little more common. I haven't done as well on those. But sometimes the Intellivision and the Colecos, I've still made $20 to $40 per broken game. Next one, Bose speakers. If you've been selling a while, Bose speakers have already come on your radar screen. Bose speakers do well. If it's new, I can usually I have no problem getting $100, $200 per speaker. When it's broken, I'm usually getting about 10 to 15% of the value of that. Next one, rotary telephones. This is another one that people really like. People seem to like them from the 1950s and older. One time I had it was probably about a 2-gallon bucket of rotary telephone parts. And it was just miscellaneous dialers, headsets, body cases. And it did have a couple of old parts from the older candlestick phones. And I couldn't believe it, this 2-gallon bucket full of old telephone parts. I got over $200 for when I loaded the whole thing up. It was just amazing. Next one. Graphing calculators. This goes along with HP calculators. Now, on the good TIs, I usually get like $15 to $20, though sometimes I have them go up to $40 and $50. But usually when I get these broken, I'll load them up in 3, and I can still get between $5 to $10 a piece for them when they're loaded up into a broken category. Now, just a couple of tips. You have to classify, of course, 4 parts are not working in the drop-down menu. Make sure people know that. And this is important that sometimes you get these dumbass buyers who buy it. They get it cheap and they think it's working, and then they go ahead and dispute it. And so you got to overkill it. So in the picture, I put, if I can, what's broken. I list it in the description as much as possible. And in the title, I'll say 4 parts are broken, so it's clear in all cases. Finally, if I can figure out what's missing or known, or if I just don't know, I'll say what's unknown. So sometimes I sell sets which are incomplete, and I can figure out what's missing, and I'll say, well, it has this, this, and this, but I know it's missing this. So, for instance, I sold a old radio, and I could see some of the tubes were missing, so it's easy for me to make that connection. The last thing is state the return policy correctly on this. Most of the time, I do not accept returns on these because, of course, I'm selling as broken. And what I like is that people who buy these things broken, my overall return rate is ultra low because, of course, they're buying it broken, so they have very low expectations, not expecting anything. So this works very well. Anyway, if you have tips or feedback, or you've sold something else broken that I missed, I'd love to know about it. As well, it'd be great if you could show me a bit of love and hit the like button and subscribe to us. Take care.